Well, hello there. It is Dr. Siobhan here. I am so excited to be back with you for another podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is about a concept called all in mentality. And I want to tell you about this concept with a very real life example. So, this past weekend, I hosted a bonus coaching call inside of the Marriage Upgrade. If you're not yet familiar, the Marriage Upgrade is my 6-month couples program that teaches you and your spouse how to communicate better, how to connect more deeply, how to be a team, how to increase your intimacy, all of the things that you need to have the marriage that you want with the spouse that you can be happy with. So, this program focuses on who you are as a couple and how you are being as individuals and helps you make the changes and create the transformation to make your marriage so much better. So, this weekend, I hosted a bonus call on a Sunday. And this call was separated by gender. So I offered a specific call for the wives and another call for the husbands on a Sunday, right, in the middle of football season. So the husbands came to this call and missed whatever football game was on, whatever they're normally doing on a Sunday, because this wasn't a pre-scheduled call. It wasn't something that they had like months of notice about. It was something that I offered just as an additional bonus because I wanted to make sure we were diving deep into many of the things that they needed to help them be successful. So I want you to imagine your own spouse, whether you're a wife listening to this and you're imagining your husband, or whether you're a husband listening to this and imagining your wife, giving up something that she loves or something that he loves to focus his time, energy, attention, her time, energy, attention on gaining some skills, learning some things, investigating what's going on within themselves to create a better marriage. This is what we're doing inside of the Marriage Upgrade. This is the work, right? And so, what I loved about the sacrifices that everyone made to be a part of this call was it required them to be all in on making their marriage better. And I honestly think that when you sign up for this program, that is the first transformation. This is an investment of your time and your energy that requires you to elevate the importance and the priority of your marriage in your life. And so having a bonus call on a Sunday when there's 1,001 other things that you could be doing is a big deal. And I want you to just think about, what does it take for you to have that kind of mentality within your own marriage? What would it take for you to be all in? I want to provide you with 3 key principles that to me really demonstrate when a person is all in and really positioned to create significant change in their marriage, right? So the first one is being willing to give up the story and the beliefs that don't serve you. Here's what I mean by that. So many times when I'm talking to people, they want to present to me all that's going wrong. They want to present to me everything their spouse is doing wrong, how unhappy they are, how they've been stuck for so long, all the things they've tried that haven't worked. To me, even if those things are true, you want to always be looking at, how attached am I to keeping that story? How attached am I to reinforcing and ruminating on those beliefs? Right? So there's a part of the story that you may be telling yourself about your marriage that's just not helpful, right? Even if your spouse isn't supporting you the way that you would like, or your communication is not the way that you want it to be, spending a lot of time focused on that, proving that true, collecting evidence only takes you farther and farther away from the goal that you have, which is to make your marriage better. And so that's not to say that you're going to eliminate these kinds of thoughts, right? I'm sure you've had a lot of experiences in your marriage that have created these beliefs. But you have to get to the point where you're assessing, how is this distracting me? How is this keeping me from what I want? What am I sacrificing in terms of enjoyment and progress and solutions by focusing over here on the things that aren't working, on how resentful I am, on how upset I am at my spouse? So in order to be all in on creating the marriage that you want, with that great communication, that great connection, all of those wonderful things that you really desire, you have to be willing to let go of the beliefs and the story you have been telling yourself that make your marriage feel very hard and very difficult. So that's number one. Number two, which nobody ever likes, myself included, is being willing to take responsibility for your part. When you think about this call that I held, it was separated by gender, which meant that the only thing we were talking about, the only thing we were focused on was the person on that call. For the wives, they were focused exclusively on themselves, what they were thinking, what they were doing, how they were reacting, how they were feeling, how they were showing up. With the husbands, the same thing. This was not a conversation at all where we entertained any thought or any conversation about what the other person was doing that wasn't helpful or working. It was 100% looking in the mirror, taking responsibility, owning the contribution they were having to whatever conflict, whatever bumps in the road, whatever challenges they were grappling with. And I want you to think about this. What if, when you look at anything that's not exactly what you want in your marriage, what if your only approach, or your very first approach at a minimum, was to ask yourself, how am I contributing to this? Now, you're going to ask yourself that now, and you're either going to be able to actually come up with some answers, or you might be in the space where you literally just have a blind spot, where if you sat with that question for 10 minutes, you really wouldn't be able to come up with how you were contributing. But I guarantee you, there is something you're doing, something you're thinking, something you're believing, some way that you're showing up that is influencing and impacting the dynamic in your marriage that's not working for you. And when you really are able to uncover this, what happens is you open up a world of new solutions that you have 100% control over. We all know, in every single conversation I have with people, they can recite, I can't control what the other person's doing. I only need to focus on me. I can only control me. I can't make anybody do anything. But we don't live it out. It's not applied. And so having that awareness, having that information doesn't do you any good if you aren't operating out of it, if you aren't living into it. Now, of course, it's so easy to look over at what your spouse is doing, how they're responding to you, how they're not doing the right thing based on what you want in your marriage, but that doesn't move you forward. You always want to be focusing on, how can I take responsibility here? What am I doing that I can change? Okay. Sometimes that's going to be taking care of your own emotions. Sometimes it's going to be reaching out to your spouse in a new way, right? Number 3 is persistence. So many times people aren't all in on making their marriage better because they are unwilling to be persistent in the face of disappointment, in the face of things not going exactly how they planned. But persistence is an essential requirement when you're going all in. And I want you to just think about, what in your life have you been persistent about already? Because it is a skill set that you have. Something you've created in your life, some result, some accomplishment you have achieved has come about only because you were persistent. Persistence guarantees your results. I want you to just think about that. Like, persistence guarantees your results. You will be successful as long as you keep going. Now, some of you may be asking, well, how long am I supposed to be persistent and my spouse isn't changing, or my spouse isn't responding to my shifts and my changes? Of course, only you will know the answer to that. But what I find is that people give up way too early. So whatever feels a little bit uncomfortable, and whenever you're feeling a little bit defeated, it's so easy to just sit out and to go back into your story, to look at what your spouse is doing wrong, instead of continuing to operate out of your own personal standards, continuing to operate as your level 10 self, which is a concept I teach inside of the Marriage Upgrade. So are you giving up on you and who you want to be based on some external factors? You really want to check yourself and just be honest, right? All of this that I'm sharing with you, it is not in any way to beat yourself up, to make you feel bad about not, giving up the sad story. It's not to make you feel bad when you don't take responsibility. It's not to make you feel bad when you want to not be motivated to do the loving and kind thing. This is just an opportunity for you to get real with yourself and to consider how, if you're not all in, you're not going to get all in results. Things may get better for a period of time, but as soon as you go back to the way that you've been operating, you're going to get the same results. And so this is just a conversation to help you see, like, where am I not all in? What are the shifts that I want to be more conscious of and in tune with to make sure that I am really giving my all and my best effort to ensuring that my marriage thrives? Now, because I like to keep it real and I like to just validate for you and acknowledge the things that are going to get in your way. Right? Most often what I see is that people step out of being all in when their spouse is not responding the way that they want, right? So maybe you're holding your tongue. Maybe you're not complaining as much as you used to. Maybe you're not being as negative. Maybe you're asking for things with more respect and kindness and a better attitude. And yet your spouse is still defensive, dismissive, withdrawn, not communicating. That's okay. Right? That is just an obstacle that is presenting itself for you to decide, how do you want to show up? Maybe your emotions are getting in the way. Maybe you feel, I am just not feeling my spouse. They are so annoying. They are aggravating me. They do these things that really trigger me. And so I'm in my feelings, feeling emotional and upset and frustrated, and I don't want to be the best partner here. Right? Okay. Right? You just have to get real with, like, the reason I'm not all in is because of how I'm feeling. The reason that I'm not all in and getting the results I want in my marriage is because I haven't learned to navigate some of these emotions. And that's okay. Right? You want to just be honest with where you are. Another thing that I often see that gets in the way for people is just lack of clarity. right? As you'll remember from the previous podcast episode, knowing what you want is so important to actually creating it. And so when you're making some effort, doing some things, listening to this podcast, reading the books, watching the videos, whatever you're doing to make your marriage better, but you aren't really clear on what exactly you want to be different, then it's really easy to not be all in because you're grasping for something that is very vague, right? What does it mean to you to have better communication? Does that mean that you can come to your spouse feeling comfortable, that you won't be judged, that they'll hear you, that they'll make the time for you, that they'll be present and actually, responsive to what you share? That's very different than just saying like, we need better communication. So the more specific you are, the clearer you are on exactly what you want, the easier it's going to be to stay all in. And then the fourth thing that I see that holds people back is just this lack of belief that it's even working, right? Maybe you've been listening to this podcast for a while. Maybe you have been consuming my content or really working to be a better spouse, and it feels like the needle is not moving. But what I want to offer you as encouragement is so many times there are things happening behind the scenes, underneath the surface, inside your spouse's heart and mind that you aren't even aware of. And so what if you just decided to trust that it's always working, even when you can't see it? It's always working for you, right? When you're taking responsibility and you're showing up in better ways that make you proud. It's always working for you when you've been able to adopt a perspective or challenge a belief that helps you to feel better. So you get to decide and define what working means. And when you're always working, it's always working. All right, that's what I have for you today. If you want to take this work deeper, if you are ready to cultivate the mindset, to get the skills, to learn the tools and strategies that are going to help you have the marriage you want, I am personally inviting you to join me inside the Marriage Upgrade. There is no program like this. There is no experience that you have other than this to come together with your spouse, to have fun, to work on your marriage, to understand yourself better, to understand each other better, so that your experience together as a couple elevates itself to a higher level. You can find out all the details about how to join the program, or you can book a call with me to talk about if this program is a great fit for you on my website, drsiobhan.com. Thank you so much for being here today. I will be back with you in the next episode. Bye for now.